Okay, we got everything done for the zip file on this phone and audio and everything else. So and that's it. Yeah, by the way, I interrupted to go there to make sure that files are safe because unless there's something said precisely. And I said, hey, well, maybe they want to tamper with the thing, and they're like, yep, that's very possible. Although you see them tampering with those things as the video is being recorded as well, not even after. So bear in mind. Start they steal the data and edit the file and place the data back. They seem to edit the thing as it goes, which is important, as I mentioned. External source. If this differences the audio from this, you know that they're tampering. And that's all you need to start with. After that, it's just about figuring out what I was saying. For the most part, it should be easy enough. There's always more than two sources these days. You notice that because they compromise one, they compromise the other, and I still don't look that worried. No, I used to, anyways. More than one reason for that, though. Either way, yeah, it's kind of a bit funny, though. What are they gonna do about it? That? Oh yeah, that might be it. So back to the app. By the way, but so you also have me realizing the thing about the child. You didn't even remember that I put in the video. I think I did. Right, I did. I remember doing. The thing is, one other thing was actually seeing a child now. But on top of that, using a child to be right, then stalkers, not in one place, but two separate places, with head starts to the other one. Not to mention the ones you see in the car, not to mention the ones you see in the back, not to mention the ones you see on this side. You know how much I love to just stay in this place, not being able to move? So, like I said, the sheer amount of narcotics that were from just pinning me down, let alone all the other things. So, narcotics to pin me down, this fucking bus, it caused to such a explicit degree with changes that we thought should make it more explicit to probably involving a child, right? Like when you say a child, you notice at first, but the second time, because what I wanted them should be short rather than the other, that's all. The thing is, one other thing was actually seeing a child now. But on top of that, using a child to commit a crime, then the stalkers, not in one place, but two separate places, with head starts to the other one. Not to mention the ones you see in the car, not to mention the ones you see in the back, not to mention the ones you see on this side. So, I'm going to explain in that video. What I said, even though it sounds loving instead of having, but what I said was having. And all the other things, in the end also they're showing, maybe it's because I'm getting paranoid, given that I know you're trying to accuse me of. The point is, pointing the phone there to at this point that I say in the end, over there, and there, and there, and you see you don't see anything. In the video feels like it was cut short. I pointed at the car. You see, this part here is where the video actually, the matching point. This part here, when you see the car, is what I'm saying. To the other one, not to mention the ones you see in the car, not to mention the ones you see in the back, not to mention the ones you see on this side. The ones you see on the car, the ones you see, where's the video? Okay? This was when I say the car. The ones you see on the cars, the ones you see on the back. And then I showed to the other side after that. In the back, there's a bunch of construction, there's a bunch of like a business, I think it's like auto repair or something like this. The ones you see on the bridge, the ones you see on there, and I pointed those places. And that was supposedly when the video stopped. Okay? What I said there was to having a child commit a crime, at the same time you have stalkers on this, that, and that, and not to mention those could be hiding inside the cars they cannot see, or in the background, or any other places, as I always point out. And that's why it was an ambush. Everybody see those, my face. Something else that's so important to mention that. Oh yeah, the thing about how much I love the place, the idea that I was just there because I had no choice, because the drugs were drugging me. They're going to throw more drugs up there. And knowing what I am here would help throw more drugs up there. So, the thing that I thought add extra, which is the thing that I mentioned before in all drugs, you're going to listen to in a minute. Even before I realized the ambush, and I thought it was just one stalker stalking me,
And the idea was that stalker is filming me now, so then throw drugs in other places ahead of me. So that's why we never get to see the drugs being thrown. But the drugs are there when you get there, right? And those would be actual narcotics for the record. As that's what I thought originally. In this case, it's just me reminding that in the videos, because I noticed that the videos were muted and the sound was in the audio.
Knowing what I am here would help throw my drugs up there.
Knowing what I am here would help them throw drugs up there.
Like I said, the cleverest than everybody else. Everybody is stupid. No one else is smart.
Everybody else is stupid, they're the only ones that's smart.
Like I said, the cleverest than everybody else. Everybody is stupid. No one else is smart.
They tamper very explicitly with the evidence, as you can see.
Like I said, it's also very stupid to the point where everybody knows. Like the guys arriving there knows. They're all the ones who know. If anyone saying otherwise, they're not going to see this live. Because they want to have about very often commercial comeback here about this kind of
So what I always say, everybody knows. The guy arriving there knows. The one pretending knows. They're masturbators. You can even say that, you know. They all, you know, and they all know everything. They know that's an ambush. They're there to act. They are actors. That's why I say they're posing for you, or they are acting. They are there to pose in such a way for you to see. They know the truth. They know everything. And again, that's why you should just create a logo of like a GIF of two guys just sitting on a couch, just grabbing each other's penis. And sorry for the graphic imagery, but the fact is just going to town and you just play that thing every time you see those. Probably, I would say it should make the whole thing, you know, available, what we call family friendly, so long as your family is not from this place, apparently. You want that to be not quite just the bloody, but not quite blood, it'd be like just the shadows of, you can see that if you know what you're seeing, you get your guy, just the hands kind of reaching. The blackness, right? I imagine the black figures, kind of like a logo, you know? And you can just see the two Moscow guys with their arms respectively disappearing into the black of each other. And black is a color too, so it's important to remember that. The thing is, just play that every time you see them acting up the situation, because it's kind of like a middle finger. As I said, it's the use of vulgar in a good way.
Like the guys arriving there, no, they're all the ones who know. If anyone saying otherwise, they're not going to see you blind. Because the ones who have established very often commercial comeback here about this kind of
Don't understand much, but I think at some point there I even mentioned the fact that they're using a child in that time, something again. So 548, yeah, this one is already muted again because of the orders on the other one. Remember that, because I know there's an order that starts at 548. See if I can get the other audio right. Don't have huge high hopes, but it's 522 plus 10 to 32 plus 15 to 37. It's going to be very close to the end.
Here's the time. Time still. Now 2 seconds.
Make sure I have my bag. And I was visually really exhausted at this point. I was breathing deeply when I was in the bridge, stopping. When I stopped right before the patrol, and other times there's even this guy from the border patrol who was fixing a camera exactly as I was passing by, so that's very iconic, and you should even have that on footage. And then I plus my things down. Nothing that involves in this crime that came after, by the way. Point involves the guy might be fixing the camera, or his idea might just be to be doing that for the crime, just to document when I was arriving. for those stalking reasons, for instance. And pass right next to it, and then I put the face down, and then I put the face down again up there, just breathing heavily. As I said, every party involved in this, particularly if it was coming from the bridge, like those ones you see my face were, and they seem to be the ones that are mostly confirmed involved, other than what seemed to be the child, and they seem to, again, maybe there was a young woman that's just awfully ugly. To the features there. That's not saying that children are ugly, but you kind of get the point in the sense that features are weird, and they'll be weird shaped. I don't know. I still believe it was most likely a child, and again, they're using children to do the crimes, which are being shared idea amongst all those criminals, by the way. Knowing that I will do exactly what I always do when someone's stalking me, and they see me do that all those other times. They're going to have hundreds of videos, if not more. Inside the defense is more of a point of me saying they set all of that up expecting me to behave in the same way that I always do. And they had the idea of involving that supposed minor in this crime. So as I said, it's an accusation.
They know that this should have lasted long enough for me to pick up the phone, open the app, just add so happy 15 seconds to 20 seconds later.
There you go. Okay? And, as I pointed out, let simple things like this. As I said, the technicality bullshit, and you have the practice, right? In practice, the question I have to ask is, would I have behaved in the same way if there was anyone else or not a child? And the answer is resoundingly yes. So they were expecting that to be the case. And that is the case for any other situation, any other films, any other things. Right? That is not a technicality. That's a core issue. Because at the end of the day, you might have some details from another, details from another place, but the fact of the matter is, I'm documenting something. On the other hand, compare that with their behavior when you see them systematically, deliberately using children in this crime to accomplish one goal or another. It's pretty much just the goal you clear to see, right? Either that you stop me to document things so they can do the crimes with impunity, or so they can accuse me of something later. That is not a technicality. Well, what they would say is, I'm using circular logic to phrase things in a weird way. So I'm saying is, from one way, the defense and the accusation. So focusing on the accusations only at this point. The accusations they make about me are based on something that the fact that there is a child there. Nothing else makes sense. As if you give any knowledge to it, you see that it's just false. But technically would fit the criteria if that happens to be the case. It's this point I'm not even confident that's the case, right? On the other hand, for my accusations about them, that they set up there as an ambush, that they chose the moment to expect me to react in the same way, and if that is indeed a child, that they chose that on purpose to try to accomplish some of their goals, and given that they accuse me of just about everything under the sun, it's pretty straightforward what they'll be. It's not. Right? That's the core issue, that's the spirit, that's the basic principle, right? It's like a guy going to a police officer and saying, I'm not dressing decently because I'm not wearing any clothes, so technically I'm not dressed. That's the technicality. The spirit of the principle is to prevent you from being again, I think it's clear enough. As I said, excuse me if I sound worse now. It's not because they have not just literally drugged me minutes ago. I may be thinking, well, this video is going to be on YouTube. You can see where my hands were at all times. You can see how everything was open at all times. What is the idea being sold at? That's a good point. Probably they expect to damble evidence or destroy evidence like they did that. And hence they're going to make it so that that's all a dream. And you imagine being under this stretch about everything and being accused of just about all things and not about this and all those other things that go along with it. Okay? So, yeah, that'll be the more selfish component of that involving children in their crimes as it happens. So if you want a more selfish approach, it's not the only one, but it is. I do feel like I should mention as much as I can to help you understand. That would be the more selfish one, if you can call it that, in the context of this. Okay, because again, that's not shy to anybody. But I want to point out, because I make those accusations very explicitly and they're very serious by nature, that they are picking up those minors. They're choosing them for this. They're compelling them to do it, or inviting, or depending on the age and depending on what it changes, what it could be. And they're doing that deliberately to accuse me of something that they know is a lie. Okay? As I said, they know that whatever bullshit they come up with, I will not film those children to film the children as a pervert or pedophile or anyone else would. I'm filming the situations where they're happening, as bizarre as they are, to show to you what they are doing, involving those children. And this is not shy on anybody, particularly because none of the other components apply. I'm not hiding. I'm doing that sometimes in the most explicit way possible, and I show myself immediately after, and I publish that in YouTube, on Google Drive, or other places with the assumption precisely that we're the good guys. Having that there would help guarantee that they cannot tamper with it, right? And notice that very likely no accusation would come, but accusation would going to cement the evidence as evidence. You're not going to tamper evidence, because then you don't have it anymore if you tamper with it. And you have it preserved in a way. I mentioned that when I was in Argentina. The idea that if accusations come is interesting, because then the courtrooms, with public money, mind you, would essentially authenticate the things for you. Because you cannot be admitting to evidence if it's not authenticated. So, ain't that beautiful? But as I said, there's not much guarantee in case of such a widespread conspiracy, so many individuals involved. And now, this is not a colloquial term. This is the legal term of the word conspiracy, legal or criminal conspiracy. As you see, the sheer amount of coordination will be required. So keep in mind, that's it. At some point there'll be someone lying. At some point there'll be someone probably giving wrong information. But I want to express is about the faces you see. And you're going to know those in the future, that influencers, as they like to say, or any other guy talking nonsense. But the important thing is, those parents, they know what they're doing enough. Explain to me under any light how that's in the child's best interest, right? And you say that this is the guy who you claim films children, and you're going to pose your child acting weird right next to him, right? Cool. Fantastic. As I said, it doesn't matter when it comes to me. Well, you see them for what they are. And that's the end of the story. Okay? So, as I pointed out, they won. I literally said that. And you see how useful this evidence is to prove the other crimes that they do, the drugging, the other abuses, how it drags a lot of outrage to actually focus on the things that they do more often, even if they stop those ones. I saw that from day one. I just didn't want to be, didn't want to be a part of that. As I said, I don't want to be a part of this type of things. Now it sounds a bit too selfish. I want you to actually express something. And I think all the times when I act in fairness, I think I deserve a little bit of credit. In times like this, to mention that this was not out of strictly selfish. Because as I said, this doesn't play out in settlement. This doesn't end in an agreement where you're shaking hands. This is going to the end. This is going to be all in, because it's already an all in for me as far as it goes. So, as I was just literally mentioned that before starting all these talks on this phone, and you can listen to that in this phone in the first video. Now it's the second one. It's already 27 minutes. The first one was like 1 hour 51, I think, when it stopped. I thought battery, or just maybe because it's probably battery. And I'm just pointing it out. Charge, okay. I actually was considering just not doing anything so that to incriminate themselves to get to better identify them. Because they would expose criminals who clearly should not be, funny enough, and this is the big irony coming up, proudly allowed to be close to children, which is exactly what they're trying to accuse me of. So, again, irony flies around like a beautiful bird. But the thing is, after so much that they did, I don't think it's fair, and given that this seemed like a more coordinated effort, because again, I didn't end up mentioning anything when I arrived, and they did all sorts of dehumanizations, and then they said something about children, was the open ending, like they do, like the brave fucking criminals like to do. Just those open ended things, hoping that I would incriminate myself. And if done so, you would have been completely innocent. You have been an absolute point where I would have been like, not today. As a matter of fact, I don't remember doing that for years at this point. But back home, I would just say, okay, it's something related to this crime when they're doing, and they're gonna get caught, and they're gonna be punished for that. But as of now, I kind of see this the crime thing, and instead, at this point, I kind of got that how to handle. And again, none of this is an admission to anything. To this point, as far as I'm concerned, that's why I'm here leaving open, because I don't know what there's going to be. My best guess is there'll be none. Eventually, they'll stop doing that and realize how fucked they end up being, and there will be one, when you see this, or anyone else, for that matter, and that will be it. That wouldn't actually get to be one. But even if it is, I wouldn't know what exactly would it be. I don't know, they could be made up or based on flimsy evidence or based on that. On my end, you see actually more concrete evidence, and as I said, I'm going to try to document those things better while keeping all those precautions. Now is the best safer because this is going to be on YouTube already, and you know the kills you see and things as they go. Plus, as you saw yesterday, I'm acting up as a way for you to see there's a child there. The child is acting weird because I don't identify it. Because the thing about not filming children is also context for videos like this, like the ones that I make. Probably not the ones that the actual, well, let's say, bad people. We'll try not to get too sidetracked here. Mostly, but again, I think getting too impaired. By the way, which one sounds more like normal days as we go? The one that I was minutes ago and they thought they're gonna fool me into doing backups, or the one now. But it's just normal, right? Just look at the rest. So, for, as I said, for my types of videos, for what you see me documenting all the crimes, angles actually kind of help, and identification is kind of more the key. I do want you to understand that there's a child there and that's what he's doing, but again, you know what? And that's a point, because it's going to be all in no matter what. I want them to actually go through and say, you know those bunch of bits on the screen there? From very far away, it's going to identify pictures that all you can see is otherwise that. Yeah, that this guy just freaking out on the thing, and then talking and showing his face, and then talking very loudly in English, you know, and everybody knows everything else. So, this is the point. But as I said, seeing the sheer amount of things you see the gaslighting and how it affects me, other things like using a bathroom or taking a bus, right? Taking a bus. So I'm here now. I was already kind of set up to pick up the 3-hour bus because the 2-hour bus will be the same one as noon, and in fact they literally stole my fucking fare. Like the bus company takes advantage of everybody, just stole my fare, and I didn't want that they turn into that again because I hadn't done with the backup yet and done the thing yet. No, later it was because of this. But in my mind I swear, again on my word, that I was thinking that it had a major influential role. So, and I don't know if it was just fear. I didn't want to dive on that as a possibility, to just not mention that already, instead of choosing the safe approach. And now again I'm rethinking if that was the best thing to do. Now I don't regret, because I think it was a very good explanation as a whole. May sound ironic if it was not that good. If they tampered with, and I hope you're wise enough to see that, I'll also authenticate that. In fact, I just saw some of those videos, some of those tamperings, it's not even like a halfway in doubt. It's very explicitly that. It's not even something you would consider for a couple of seconds as not being tampered with, right? When I imagine the video image of me was just literally being possessed by the devil as the thing was happening. Sounds a bit like a stretch, if you'd ask me. Some weirdo trying to distract.
É o colocar.
should have pointed out to the front. They said it's not my business. Quite literally, it's not my business, but also it's not my business. It's not like I'm not talking on the phone back and forth. Right? It's just because they probably assumed that I was working here. Again, for those times when all of a sudden I no longer look like a bad guy and I no longer look like a hard-working guy. Honestly, I kind of look like a lumberjack in a way. I'm a lumberjack and okay. I'm not okay and I'm not a lumberjack. And there's going to be a lumberjack anyways, to be a lumber mill, timber mill yard. Timber mill, or mill yard. No, what's the name? I played city builders my entire life. I know their names. Have the lumberjacks, the ones that cut the actual woods, and they got the logs, and the guys who take to the lumber yard that convert the logs into boards. And then you get the. By the way, I want to keep it distance because again, I'm publishing this on YouTube, and I want it to be on. I didn't want to get any faces in it to just contaminate the whole thing. At least not faces that are not necessarily involved in this. And the other one you saw early, I think it's on the previous video. That one outside in the street, that one, first off, is a public street, so it's on the bay. But secondly, you saw he paused and he stayed there and he acted weird. So that one is involved for sure. This guy, even though they're almost certainly confident it is as well, there is an assumption that also could have been just there for the sake of just buying something, particularly just type of thing. So, but yeah, I'm confirming to you, and the fact I have to get the numbers. I just don't want to down this thing. Yeah, another thing about me documenting things and vehicles and other things. Yeah, your plate number is not assumed to be secure. Now I don't know about publishing that in again, public video. We're gonna put that in another one. Just something to remember. And there's one or two options. Either you be starting off before I get the chance, choose good news online, and keeping track if I'm doing anything that I'm not saying, or maybe not. Oh yeah, but I think that have to do something.